A lot of times people are very focused on getting past the gatekeeper when it comes to phone, and we'll talk a lot about that. But it also applies to getting past the gatekeeper if you're calling on a business in person. So, the obvious thing is that if we can't get past the gatekeeper, we're not going to get the decision maker, and we don't get the decision maker, we're not going to make a sale. What drives me nuts is that sometimes people will be on the phone and kind of a cop out, and they'll try to leave a message with the gatekeeper, or they'll try to pitch the gatekeeper, and it's like, why are you wasting your time? Yes, everything works sometimes. It could work in 1 out of 100 tries, but normally that's just an excuse not to make the next call or go to the next door. So don't do that. Don't waste your time trying to get to the decision maker and then settle for the gatekeeper and try to pitch them. It just doesn't work. So we're going to talk about how you get past the gatekeeper, how your best chances are. It's not going to work every time, but nothing in life does, particularly in sales. But if you go from 1 out of 10 tries of getting through the gatekeeper and you go to 3 out of 10 tries, guess what? That's 3 times the number of decision makers you can talk to and pitch, and that you'll eventually get sales from. So it's worth your time to get this right. So, getting through the gatekeeper is one of the critical things. And, first I wanted to go through some general ideas and guidelines for how to get through a gatekeeper, what we need to keep in mind, and then I'll give you just a real quick outline of a real easy formula on how to do it. So, by the way, if you like this content, you think it's valuable, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. It helps me out, and share your thoughts, on comment, like, and all that YouTube-y stuff. Share it with your friends. So when it comes to gatekeepers, the first thing that I've seen, boy, this is, you would think that this would be an obvious thing for people, but I've seen it done wrong a lot of times. And people think that because the receptionist, at a company or whatever, is probably the lowest paid or one of the lowest paid employees, that maybe they don't necessarily deserve the respect. And salesperson doesn't have to be, as nice to them as they do to the decision maker, because the decision maker is directly responsible for if they're going to make the sale or not. When, number one, it's the wrong thing to do as a human being. We should treat everybody with respect and everybody equally. But what we don't understand sometimes is that gatekeeper has the ear of the decision maker a lot of times. And you also don't know who you're talking to. The number of times that I've called a company and spoken to the gatekeeper, and it was a smaller company, and guess what? The spouse picked up the phone. The spouse was the gatekeeper, the owner, that was his wife, or, vice versa, and so you never know who you're talking about. It could be the owner's daughter. It could be the owner's son. So you never know who you're talking about. And that gatekeeper most likely has influence, and certainly influence with the decision maker as it pertains to you. So the better view they have of you, the person who's calling, the person who's in front of them, the better chance that you are going to have a positive impact with the decision maker before you even talk to them. And the opposite is true. If the gatekeeper doesn't like you, doesn't respect you, and doesn't think you're a nice person, guess what? They're going to say, hey, there's some jerk out here that wants to talk to you. And the decision maker right away is saying, hey, I'm not going to talk to that person. I know as a business owner in our company, the most important asset I have is the people that work with me and the team that work with me. And I'm very protective of them, and I will take them any day over any client, any prospect. And so we will always side with them. And so I'm very protective. And if somebody is disrespectful, condescending, I've had, unfortunately, clients over the years, I have a lot of female employees, and, so a client will come and, kind of have the attitude of, put the man on the phone type of thing. And it's like, boy, is that dumb, because immediately it's like, we ain't doing business, period. And it's not a gender thing. It's about respect. So make sure that the whole goal is to get the gatekeeper on your side. And so we'll talk about some ideas on how to do that. The bottom line is that we always have to remember, in sales and any kind of human interaction, people are self-interested. And so really the question is, why would the gatekeeper want to let you speak to their boss, speak to the decision maker at the company, even if it's not directly their boss? Why would they want to help you? So we really need to do a couple things. We need to sort of create a friend in the gatekeeper, if need be, if the conversation goes that way. And we certainly need to create rapport so that we don't turn them off. I did a whole video on rapport that you can check that out about how to do that on the telephone in particular or in person. And, it's little things like, if the gatekeeper is soft-spoken, if you come across as gruff and, fast-talking, whatever, and you have a gatekeeper who's very kind of mousy and very quiet and everything, guess what? You're going to scare them off. They're not going to like you, and they're going to be intimidated and most likely not going to help you out. And so, again, we've got to give that gatekeeper, we've got to put their defenses down, get them to like us to an extent so they're more willing to help us. One of the things we can do also, because there's two different approaches, particularly, let's say if you're cold calling and you know the name of the person that you're calling, or you know the name of the decision maker, instead of calling up and saying, hey, can I please speak to Mr. John Smith? That's the wrong way to do it. The best way to do it is to call up and say, yeah, John Smith, please. And what's the difference between those two? Number one is kind of, hey, I'm a salesperson. I'm trying to reach this person, so I can sell them something. Number two is, who is this? Is this a friend of John Smith, my boss? Is this, sounds pretty serious, but it's it's an authority thing, and it's a command that's given, because people respond to commands, and you'd be amazed about how well that works. I remember years ago, this had to be, almost 30 years ago, I was briefly had a stint as an executive recruiter. I went to this conference in San Francisco, and I remember this trainer doing live calls in front of us with gatekeepers, and he did exactly that. He showed us the difference between asking nicely, can I please speak to the decision maker, versus, hey, let me speak to this person, whatever, with authority. And it was amazing how much it worked. So try that out. And of course, like I said, it doesn't work all the time. So what do you do if somebody says, oh, well, who is this or whatever? And this is where it goes into what we just talked about, the liking principle, getting the gatekeeper on your side, and it comes down to, why would the gatekeeper want to let you buy, and so we have to do it from a self-interest standpoint, because there's two things: self-interest of the decision maker and self-interest of the gatekeeper. So the gatekeeper, what do they want? They want their boss to be happy with them, proud of them, think they're doing a good job, all that. They don't want their boss to say, why'd you let this idiot through? And yet they also are human beings. And, let's say you're calling and you're trying to sell some kind of like a group health insurance policy, or some kind of benefits, disability policy or whatever, something that actually has a direct benefit to employees. That's a huge thing to be able to bring up, because, you can subtly, sort of suggest that, hey, yeah, I was calling to speak, to the reason I was calling was because this is, Robert at XYZ Insurance, and I was calling because we've got a program that is super cheap and yet really good. It's got some great benefits for the employees of your company, and I just wanted to talk to so-and-so about it briefly. Can you put me through to them, type of thing. And what does that do? That subtly says, hey, this is a good thing because it's low cost for the boss. And also, hey, as a gatekeeper, I'm an employee, and hey, I might get some benefit out of this. So, hey, maybe I should put this person through, So it's thinking about how they can impress their boss and how they can get something out of it, because that's kind of the double whammy, that the perfect scenario that allows you to get them. So, it goes back to scripting and thinking about in advance how you present that, and you have to try different things. Again, if you just wing it, it's not going to work. So you have to think through, what is the wording, with your product or service? Why would they want to put you through? What is going to make it sound like it's in their best interest and in their boss's best interest? And one of the things that I mentioned that recruiting thing I did years ago, and unfortunately in that business, sometimes because of the confidential nature of things, there's some unethical stuff where they'll basically lie, and say, when it comes to when they're trying to recruit employees from one firm to another, because they're trying to keep it all confidential. And it really bothered me. I don't know if it's upbringing or what, but I'd be a horrible CIA spy and lie to people, whatever, for a living. But so when it comes to the gatekeeper, it's like the last thing we want to do is lie or even exaggerate the truth. I've unfortunately tried exaggerating the truth a little bit, and you get caught. I'm telling you, you do not want to do that. So whatever you do, be honest with them. If it doesn't work and you're not getting through, hey, no problem. Go to the next call, go to the next door, whatever. So you don't want to get yourself in trouble just from a business standpoint. It just doesn't make any sense because it's not going to work. People see right through it. Those are some of the basic things that we want to keep in mind as we do this. But what's sort of a quick outline of how you do this? And again, this is, I've done videos on scripting and that sort of thing, but just to give you sort of a general outline of what you should do in the parts of the conversation when you're talking to somebody. And so what's step one? The easiest thing, like I said, particularly if you know somebody's name, it's not as easy if you don't, but basically tell the gatekeeper what to do. Meaning, instead of saying, is John Smith in, you say, John Smith. And you notice I didn't go, John Smith? John Smith. And it's a command. By doing that, they go, oh, okay, well, and it's a natural inclination of somebody who listens to it. They think that it's an authority figure. We all, as human beings, have grown up to respond to authority figures. And when somebody tells them something to do in a voice that's serious, they tend to do it. So, again, does it work every time? No. But if it works, 20% of the time, boom, you just eliminated all the other stuff that we have to talk about here. So that's the easiest thing to do is to tell the gatekeeper, hey, I want to talk to this person and put me through. It's not that you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you got to be authoritative about it. So they think you mean business, so to speak. Like, this is a serious conversation. This is not, some salespeople will call up and go, hey, how are you today? And, what's the weather like? And, ha, 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 and all, it's like, no. Try this first. This works, trust me. So if that doesn't work, you go right into it, who you are. This sounds like a basic thing, but the problem is people will go, hi, I'm Robert Poole. My company is Total Business Results, and we specialize in business coaching, help businesses grow, optimize, and scale their businesses, and blah, 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 blah. Go on to this long spiel, and we get hung up on halfway through it. And it's because people don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about what you can do for them, and that's about it. They're all self-interested, like we talked about. It's a natural human thing. That's the way we work as human beings. So we don't want to spend too much time on this. So the person says, you tell them to give you this, I want to talk to John Smith, or John Smith, please. And they go, okay, yeah, who's calling? And I'll say, yeah, it's Robert Poole. And again, they're going, oh, is that a friend? Is that his golf buddy? Or, that type of thing? Or are they thinking, oh, maybe that's another, maybe that's an attorney, or maybe that's some other person that is important, that I should put through. And again, make them solicit the questions, initially, because the shorter the conversation you have with them, the less hole you're going to dig yourself into. You'll find out the longer you go into it, it gets trickier and trickier, and that's where you're really going to work on that rapport and liking and all that good stuff. It works, and it can work fine, but again, why make more work for yourself? So, keep it simple. Just your name. Don't even say your company. If they ask, your company or whatever, more likely they're going to say, and what are you calling about? And that's where, we go into this, again, why? Why should they listen to you? Why should they put the gatekeeper? Why should they put you through to the decision maker? And again, we have to, just like I talked about before, we have to make it so that it makes sense for them that they're either going to impress or make their boss happy because they think their boss would like whatever we're talking about, or it's actually self-interested for them, meaning they're going to get some benefit out of it. So again, this is where it comes back to wording and spending time with your product, your solution. And I guarantee if you spend enough time on it, you can be able to figure out ways to explain that so it's a benefit to both of them, both the decision maker and the gatekeeper. Even if it's, you're doing IT services or whatever, and that you can save the company money on their managed IT stuff versus doing it in-house, you could even say, hey, call them because we found that we've got other businesses down the road that, have been able to save a ton of money on their IT, and it's made it a lot easier for all the employees because they don't have to do X, Y, Z. Again, you talk about saving money, which the boss likes, and you talked about making life easier on that receptionist or just employees in general. So make it something about them, because that's what we all care about. And then, so it's what's in for them. And then, every time that they respond with something and you give them an answer, what do? It goes right back to here. Again, tell them what to do. So, they say, okay, what's this about? Or, what are you selling? Or, any number of things that, you just have to respond with that, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why it's beneficial to you. And you end that instead of saying, okay, so now can I please speak to whatever, can I please speak to John Smith? No, instead of that, it's the, hey, this is why it's so great for you. It'll only take a minute. Can you please put me through to John Smith? Again, it's a command. It's not a question. So we have to address it that way. We have to use that authority that we automatically have. There's other things you can do, but these are some of the basic things, particularly over the phone, whereas a lot of people get in trouble. It's a little bit easier in person because you can use body language and you can spend more time with the gatekeeper and all that kind of stuff. But when it's over the phone, you don't have all that. So you've got to use some of these other techniques, your voice being, the super important part of it. So again, I hope this was helpful. Again, if you would please subscribe to the channel. I think we've got a lot of great videos on here, other things that I mentioned. If you'd like this video and really helps us out, and subscribe, share the video and all that other YouTube-y stuff. Tell your friends about it. We appreciate it, and I will